Thanks, Sarah. That's great. So welcome again to everybody. It's always great to see so many people and different faces actually, and different living rooms and different kitchens. I'm quite I'm quite enjoying. Any of you that know me will know that one of my old favourite things to do was go on the train and look at everybody's garden, and if it was at night, you would then get to see in their houses. So I'm quite enjoying being able to kind of peek into people's spaces and get some ideas for doing it in my own house. So the Chamber's been obviously doing a lot of different things now that we're in lockdown, and the webinar programme is obviously right at the top of that list. So if you are new to Chamber webinars, we do a general networking session during the day on a Tuesday, which is for members only. And this week, for the very first time, we took what would have been our DAC 123 events from real life and took that into Zoom. So our DAC 123 networking is usually hosted by a member, and that member gets a chance to kind of update and talk about what they do. And then we split the attendees into discussion groups, so small, maybe 6 or 8 people in a group, and usually then there's topical questions that are posed to every group, and then we kind of come back and share what everybody's talked about. And usually the host then will usually want to put at least one question of their own into those discussion groups, so just gets a chance for so for example, we've had in the past Rise, the trampoline place, ask about how could they get more people returning to visit, rather than just go as a one-off seat as a bit of a luxury, and then maybe go and do something else with the family. So yeah, our DAC 123s are really interesting, and it worked very well on Zoom yesterday. So yeah, if you've never attended one of our DAC 123s in real life, then next week would be great to see it on the virtual version. Tuesday evening is our A Guide to series, and last night was A Guide to Cybersecurity, and there's always something that particularly in the current crisis, there's always something to kind of learn and take away. There was lots of questions last night, and lots of points for us all to be thinking about. But using your own devices, and using your home broadband, and not having a guest password on that then means that if your children's pals have access to your Wi-Fi and have a device that your business machine is then sharing the internet access, then there's all sorts of risks associated with that. So yeah, and that's will be on the YouTube channel this week. So if you didn't see that, you've got a chance to go and have a look at that. Wednesdays are all about supporting people, and today is definitely going to be about supporting employees. But our Wednesday series was born out of starting with mental health and well-being, and it's focused on motivating people and managing people remotely, and all sorts of the aspects of kind of supporting people. And on Thursdays we do supporting business. So we've looked at the business support schemes. We've looked at all sorts of things on the business support Thursday sessions, and tomorrow is all about leadership and how you may be thinking about taking your business through these challenging times. So if you're not doing anything tomorrow at 10 o'clock, then that one is available for you to go and come and join us. And we've been looking also at how we adapt what we do, and are looking at launching some new virtual services. So there's been a lot of talk within the Chamber and the Chamber team about what do we do. We're going to be launching virtual trade missions. So if you are interested in connecting with overseas customers or exploring new markets, then that's something that the whole Scottish Chamber network is working with Scottish Government on. So yeah, lots and lots of things going on within the Chamber, as you might expect. And if you tend to follow us on Instagram or maybe some of the other social media channels, then you might have seen some of the dressing up we've been doing in our team meetings. So I'm sure, like many of you, you'll be having sessions where you're getting your team together virtually and talking. We get together at 9:30 every day, and we started off, I think that it was kind of naturally me that was kind of going around the team and asking what everybody was doing, and then one of the team decided to volunteer the team to maybe take a share and co-host that. So he got first. he was first volunteer. And that's worked really nicely, because it's helped everybody in the team then interact with everybody, rather than it be me always ask Katie and Vince and others, how they're doing. But we decided we needed to shake that up and theme how we dressed. So we started off with hats, which was really straightforward and simple. Today was pajamas. We've not shared any of those pictures yet, but we were dressed as 90s rave outfits yesterday, which was quite funny. So I definitely was channeling Kevin and Perry. It was not anything very sophisticated at all, but you've got to go with what you've got in the house, don't you? So yeah, and the supporting people is hugely important, isn't it? And trying to make sure you've got a culture that supports you as a person, your team, your friends, your family, your business colleagues, just all sorts of people. And there's all sorts of challenges, and mental health and well-being, and how we all work really well, or work not so well in a remote environment, or as we're trying to get to come out of lockdown, and all of the fears, I guess, that go with that, are just not going to go away. So our Wednesday session is always really interesting. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to hand over to Deborah Miller first of all. So Debs, if you unmute yourself, and then when I can hear you, I'll get out of the way and let you know it's good to go.
Good. I will share my screen. So I've got some slides, so just bear with me a second while I do that. Hopefully that's working and you can all see those slides.
It's coming. Yeah, there
we go. Right, good. We've got it. Brilliant. Well, hello and welcome. I'm delighted to be here speaking to you by this new technology. It's fantastic. I'm Deborah Miller. I'm a partner in McRoberts Employment Law team. I'm an accredited specialist in employment law, and I'm joined today by Heather Meikle, who's a counselling psychologist from First Psychology Scotland. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by giving you a brief outline of what it is that we'll be talking about today. And then Heather and I will talk through the issues, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of that. I'm just going to change my screen because I can't see any of you at the moment, so just bear with me. Shall I see if I can do that? There we go. Okay, good. So starting with a brief outline of what we're going to be talking about this afternoon. First of all, Heather's going to talk about the psychological impact of lockdown. And then after that, I'm going to be talking about supporting your staff, steps that you can be taking to promote well-being. And that's including steps that you can take once a new normal has resumed and everyone has got back to work. So the focus is really going to be on the practical aspects. So I'm going to now hand over to Heather, who's going to share her screen, and we're going to have a look at psychological impact of lockdown first.
Okay. Let's see. Hopefully you can see some slides that I've got for you. Don't know, Deborah, if you can give me a wee thumbs up if you can see them.
Let me just see. Yes, we can see.
Lovely. Okay, so as Deborah said, so I'm from First Psychology Scotland, and I'm a counselling psychologist, and I do just want to talk to you a wee bit about the psychological impact that the lockdown's having. So you've probably seen a lot of risks to people's mental health because of the pandemic, and that'll probably impact on people's confidence and ability to return to work as well. So some of the negative consequences on mental health might be anxiety about the ongoing health crisis and fear of infection, might be some social isolation, you might have some domestic challenges or bereavements as a result of maybe losing a close relative or friend to the virus, or some trauma if you yourself have been hospitalised. So I'm going to talk to you a wee bit more about that. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was sort of coronavirus related anxiety. I think this is something that we're going to be seeing a lot of. So generally we take for granted that we can go out into the world and nothing bad will happen to us, whereas the lockdown has really encouraged people to rush home, not interact with other people in case they catch something potentially life-threatening. So with this advice, there's a massive loss of security and safety, which will probably result in feelings of trepidation and anxiety for many people as the lockdown restrictions start to lift. Some of the first staff to return to work especially might feel like guinea pigs, So they might struggle to trust the safety of returning, while some people might be desperate to return to work. Others might experience this lasting fear of infection from a virus that we still know very little about. So how would you recognise some symptoms of anxiety in your staff? So there might be some physical symptoms. You might notice people looking really tired, maybe losing or gaining weight, maybe suffering from headaches or trouble concentrating, difficulty remembering things, or they might be feeling a lot more angry, they might be more irritable, they might seem to be avoiding their friends or their family, losing interest in work, constantly worrying. And these are very general symptoms of anxiety that might be similar to what staff will be experiencing if they're anxious about the virus and returning to work. But anxiety related to health and illness can also include behaviours like compulsions to clean, whether that's your body, your hands, your workspace. You can be hyper aware of any changes in your body or hyper aware of any changes in your environment. You might be researching a lot about like symptoms of the virus or statistics about the virus. And this can, so you might witness these changes in your staff behaviour that might become a little bit unhealthy and might cause it a bit more difficulty to engage with work or their colleagues because they're maybe spending a lot of time cleaning or looking for chances of infection. So then you might be faced with some staff who might be fearful to return to work because of the health risks that this poses for themselves and those closest to them. And this might be enhanced, particularly if someone's caring, for an elderly or a vulnerable or shielding relative. You might also be faced with staff who are maybe afraid or unable to come to work if they normally rely on public transport to commute, because there's still a big fear and a lot of discouragement about the use of this because of the high risks of infections. So there might be a lot of fear just around the safety of returning to work for staff and their families. So another way that the lockdown might have impacted your staff is that a lot more people might be struggling with low mood or depression. So a lot of us rely on routine, regular social contact and support as a way of maintaining our positive mental health. And a lot of staff might have found that this has been taken away from them by the lockdown restrictions requiring us to socially distance, social isolate and remote work. So people who have been self-isolating for longer due to themselves or a relative being in the vulnerable group, individuals living alone or those with a history of depression will probably be the most at risk from this. So you might be able to recognise some of this in staff. Excuse me. Very similar physical symptoms like in anxiety, trouble sleeping, changes in appetite, difficulty concentrating, tiredness, things like that, and some psychological symptoms. Again, quite similar, just changes or unexpected changes in behaviour or mood, like feeling really angry, difficulty making decisions, loss of interest in things. And on the more serious side of things, you might have staff feeling very hopeless or thinking about harming themselves or taking their own lives, and that would obviously need to be escalated immediately. But you might be faced generally with staff who are a bit unmotivated to return to work or struggle to engage with their work or their colleagues. So if you're feeling a bit hopeless, there's a real lack of motivation. Just, what's the point, in getting out of bed in the morning? So staff might really struggle to readjust to stricter schedules, setting alarms, dressing for work, travelling in, especially when we've all become accustomed to working from home. And we've got a bit more autonomy, less formality, so there might be a big period of adjustment for staff. And while functioning and staff moods, might be really impacted by work-related stress, just with things being quite uncertain or changing. They might have further stress loaded on depending on their domestic situation. So staff might have additional responsibilities to care for vulnerable relatives or children on top of their work commitments, and they might experience extra stress because of financial uncertainty, if their partners have lost their job or significant income, or they might be experiencing additional strain on their relationship, because it is really difficult to be, in lockdown with the same people all the time for months and months on end. So some employees might feel a reduction in stress on the other side of things, when working from home or on furlough, just because they might have fewer demands on their time, they may be able to spend more quality time with their family, and they might then feel more stress and guilt about returning to work and leaving that behind. So how could you recognise stress in staff? Again, a lot of the similar things coming up. Changes in appetite, changes in sleeping. On the other side of things, with stress and coping with stress, we can increase our consumption of substances, whether that's coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on, especially if it feels like staff are excessively drinking alcohol, because this can obviously cause a lot more harm and a lot more problems further down the road. And similarly to before, people can become more irritable, start avoiding family and friends. They might feel more out of control, unable to cope, and especially might be jumping from one task to the other without finishing things. So staff might be, our managers might be faced with staff who are a little more overwhelmed with the current changes to their ways of working, and they might struggle to adapt to returning to work just because of increased demands on their time. They might still have vulnerable relatives to support. They might still have children staying home from school. They might still have partners or other dependents that are still out of work. So feeling increased pressure and stress might result in a lot of employees not wanting to come back to work or feeling overwhelmed by a change in workload, especially if that workload's increasing on returning to work. And they might just struggle to concentrate and look after themselves, really, especially if they're not able to meet those expectations that they maybe have for themselves or that others have for them to be back to work sort of at the same level as they were before the lockdown started. And on top of feeling maybe increased anxiety, stress and low mood, staff might also be grieving. So unfortunately, this process of grieving might be a lot more complicated than what we're maybe used to seeing. So in the UK, sadly, tens of thousands of people have died as a result of the virus so far. And the ongoing impact of the pandemic means that staff might have lost family members, partners or friends, and you yourselves might have experienced the loss of a co-worker. And a lot of this loss will be very unexpected and shocking. And it might have a really big impact on employees' well-being. So because of the nature of the virus, it's unlikely that a lot of people that are grieving will be able to say goodbye to their loved ones, either in hospitals or at funerals, because attendance has been so severely restricted. So that might really struggle for them to process their grief in the normal way. And as well, because of isolation and social distancing, staff might feel very isolated when they're grieving if they're not able to get the support of their family and friends. And this can really increase feelings of grief and loneliness. While other people, might find that their response to a loss is delayed, maybe because they're really distracted by worries for others' health and their own health during the pandemic. So their grief might really hit them much later than you would expect. So it's useful to be aware as well that employees, might experience a lot of anger about their bereavement. I think around the pandemic, we can feel like there's someone else to blame for the death. They might feel like it's themselves for infecting the person, or they might blame other people who maybe aren't socially distancing properly, or they might blame the government's response to the pandemic. And they might also feel guilt, for being alive when their loved ones died, maybe for not being able to visit them, or maybe for not being able to meet their last wishes. And this can especially be true if a loved ones maybe had to go into intensive care despite having indicated that they wanted to die at home and things like that. And so all of this is likely to have a really lasting impact on employees' mental health and impact how they return to work, because they'll need to come to terms with what they've experienced. And so some other markers that you might notice if a staff member's grieving on top of those that I've just mentioned: just sadness, hopelessness, difficulty concentrating, loss of interest, lack of motivation. They might not be taking care of themselves very well. So you might be faced with staff who are maybe a bit emotionally overwhelmed to return to work. So they might be struggling to concentrate and engage fully with their role and their colleagues. And particularly because reminders of deaths resulting from the virus are being discussed a lot socially and in the media, so it can make it difficult to resume normal activities when these kind of constant reminders are there. Now, something else that we might not frequently come across is medical treatment trauma. So often if someone has been hospitalised for a serious illness, once they've physically recovered, we can often consider the recovery to be over. But if a staff member has experienced the virus themselves and required hospitalisation, they may experience some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, or post-intensive care syndrome, PICS. So this is something we normally don't think about unless someone has been in intensive care, but it can really happen at any level of treatment. So while someone might have recovered physically, having a severe illness or a near-death experience definitely does have a much longer lasting impact. And these symptoms can be experienced by close family members who may have witnessed the hospitalisation and severe illness of someone they love as well. So the effects of witnessing it can be exacerbated similar just because we're isolating, don't have the support of other people, of close family and friends, and seeing information about the virus a lot on the news and social media could trigger more stress, as could follow-up medical appointments for those that have been hospitalised. That could really trigger the anxiety. So yeah, anxiety can be a very common symptom of any kind of trauma. Medical treatment trauma and symptoms of other kinds of trauma are very similar in terms of people might have really intense emotions or intrusive memories or nightmares about the experience. They might be very hypervigilant, so either about what's going on with them in their body or in their environment. So we've got exaggerated startle response there, which is just almost like being very jumpy. And they might avoid places or people or certain things that remind them of what's been going on for them. So managers might be faced with staff who are still trying to process a very traumatic event, and they might struggle to return to normal activities. They might be unwilling to return to work if they've had significant anxiety about leaving the house, because experiences like this can result in, you know, some really severe thinking that the world is very dangerous for me now. Like, this really terrible thing has happened to me that I never expected. So the world has become a lot more threatening. And as well, staff might be unable to concentrate on or engage in their work and may require additional support just to aid their recovery. So managers might have to be aware of what adjustments or additional support they might need, particularly if they're still getting medical treatment. So that's just a little kind of summary then, a quick flash through of some of the issues that staff might be facing coming back to work that they've maybe not been able to work through. So it's really important to keep that in mind, how the lockdown may have impacted your staff. So I'm just going to try and pass you back to Deborah. See if I can. There we go. All right. Is that okay? You're able to share your screen?
Yep, I'm just...
Lovely.
Sorry, just bear with me. My technological skills are not always... Are you seeing my screen just now?
I can see it, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay. Super. So thank you, Heather. I personally found that really, really interesting. And what I want to talk about now is, in light of all of that, what sort of steps can you as an employer take to try and support your staff now and when we get to the stage of returning to work? And I'm really covering this from three perspectives, or talking to you from three perspectives. Obviously, my role as an employment lawyer means I'm looking at it from the perspective of avoiding claims, tribunal claims, court proceedings. So there's that element to it. But also McRoberts and myself as a partner, we manage a business as well, and we have staff. So some of what I'm going to be talking about is the steps that we've been taking and ones that I've seen with my clients that have been really helpful and useful. So I'm wanting this to be less focused on the law, which I'm sure you'll all be pleased to hear, and more focused on practical steps. And there's also a third element to my perspective in all of this, and that's that last year I had a cancer diagnosis, so I was off work for a period of about a year, going through various sorts of treatment, and the emotional impact of that is very similar to the emotional impact that a lot of people are experiencing now and the issues around returning to work. So as well as having the perspective of an employer, hopefully I've got some insight now into what it's like being an employee in these sorts of situations, albeit it's a slightly different scenario. But as I said, I think there are a lot of parallels there. And the key to all of this really is about communication and how you communicate with staff. So I could be very quick and end my talk there, but what I want to do is give some practical suggestions about how you might want to do that. So first of all, looking at keeping in touch now, whilst we are in lockdown and the majority of staff are still working from home, and what sort of approaches you might want to take. And employers really do have a wide range of approaches to how they keep in touch with staff and communicate with staff during this time. Um, a really good way of doing this is through having team catch-ups, audio or video calls, and video calls in particular I think are really good because as we're doing just now, it's really nice to actually see other people and other human beings, and it gives it that bit more personal touch and interaction, and I think that can be really important, particularly where people are experiencing loneliness or isolation. Having that visual connection can be really helpful. In our team, we have daily team catch-ups at 9 o'clock every morning, usually audio, but we also do regular video catch-ups. Some of those are social, where we just have a cup of coffee and a break. Others are more business related. There will also be a need to communicate with staff throughout this period about business updates, what's happening to your business, how things are going, that sort of thing. And generally, I think the best way to communicate those, if you can, is through email. And the reason for that is you're able to give a really consistent approach, and employees can go back and read over things so they can take them in. So sometimes when you deliver a message verbally, it's not always possible if it's for employees to take all of that in, so it gives them something to go back on. And that's not to say you can't also follow up with individual communications, but for business updates, having an email is a really good way of doing it. We also talked about earlier on about non-operational messages and things that you might want to do to keep in touch with staff on a more social basis, because the social interaction is often what's really important to people about their workplace. And we've seen a variety of different things. So couch to 5K, running events, yoga across Zoom or other platforms, cooking demonstrations, that sort of thing. In our team, we do a weekly quiz, which I have to confess I'm absolutely appalling at. It's not where my strengths lie, but it's good fun, and it's a really nice way to keep in touch with staff. So these are just some suggestions. I'm sure you've got your own suggestions or own ideas about how you can be keeping in touch with staff during this time. I want to talk about now how you might address health and safety and job security concerns that staff have, and go about dealing with those. And a couple of suggestions. The first one is to create a forum where staff members can ask questions. Now that could be, again, in our firm, we have regular gatherings of staff where they're given an opportunity to talk about issues that are concerning them and ask questions as a group. So that might be a way that you can do it. It could also be an online forum. It doesn't have to be a video type forum or one where they attend in person. A really good idea is to create a frequently asked questions section on your intranet, dealing with the more general questions that staff might have, or concerns that they might have, and a link to that could be attached to a newsletter that you send out. And I think this is really good because it shows that their concerns are the employees' concerns are being considered. A good idea is to have a business update newsletter. Staff tend to respond really well to that, so you could either start that if you haven't got one already, or maintain that during lockdown. Again, feedback certainly from our staff has been very positive on that. And speak to staff members on an individual basis. So none of this gets away from speaking to people individually. Most employers will have access to an employee assist programme for their staff where they can get counselling, and a good idea is to make sure that staff know about that and know where they can access that. In terms of mental health, concerns about job security can have a particular impact on mental health, and part of the problem there is often that there is an information vacuum, and the lack of information and communication can make those concerns about job security exaggerated or worse than they would have been otherwise. So again, it's all about communication. It's about regular communication. So again, maybe newsletters, and making sure that staff really feel informed so that that can try and reduce their anxiety levels. If you've got staff on furlough, my suggestion would be it's about being open with them about the state of the business, what options you're considering, and the reasons for the furlough. And it's also about making sure that your messages are consistent so that staff are getting the same messages from senior management and their direct line managers as well, so that there's consistent messaging. It's likely that we're going to be working from home for quite some time yet, certainly in office-based roles like mine, but there is a need to plan for returning to work when that eventually happens, and we all need to be starting to think about these things now. Now, in terms of health and safety, there's a duty, so far as reasonably practicable, for employers to ensure the health and safety and welfare at work of their employees. And I could do a whole seminar just on that, which is not really the purpose of today. I want it to be more practical, but just to flag the importance of this, that breaching your health and safety obligations is a criminal offence, and it would be relied on or could be relied on in civil claims. So that could be employment tribunal claims or personal injury claims. Following the government guidance would probably be good evidence, we think, of meeting those health and safety concerns, and there's a lot of guidance around social distancing at work, etc. What employers have to do is they have to assess the risk in their business. They need to set up a safe system of work. They need to make sure that that system is implemented, and they need to review that system to make sure that it's effective. And the duty to do all of this can't be delegated, so it's an obligation on the employer. And importantly, there's a duty to consult with employees and unions about the health and safety aspects, and you're expected to communicate risk assessments, to publish those and publish changes to them. So what this is going to mean is that we're now going to need to update, or if we haven't already got them, implement risk assessments. We need to make sure that social distancing measures and health and safety measures in light of the pandemic are put in place. And again, importantly, that we ask for feedback from staff collectively, so that staff are given the opportunity to express their concerns. So again, something that we've done in McRoberts is we've done a survey of staff to ask them for their comments on various different proposals that we have for returning to the office when that happens. For staff that are feeling uncomfortable coming back to work, again, the key here is going to be about communication, so that we can minimise those concerns and reassure them of the steps that you're taking. And it's really important that staff feel that you are listening to their concerns. And what you want to do is, again, make sure that these staff are aware of the steps that you're taking to protect their health and safety, and they're aware of the support that's available to them. So if that's your employee assist, or you've got mental health first aiders, etc., so that they're aware of the support that's available to them. So as I've said, it's likely that we're not actually going to get back to business as usual for quite some time. But when we eventually do, again, that's probably a really good time to refresh information to staff about the support that's available to them. this is not something, particularly around mental health, that is new, and mental health or the inability to deal with it effectively is very, very costly to businesses. And ACAS have produced some statistics that they estimate that the cost to UK employers of getting these issues wrong is about £30 billion per year, and that comes about through lost production, recruitment and absences. And then added to that, from my perspective, there's also employment tribunal claims. So my advice in all of this is to be proactive in thinking about these issues and trying to address them. The most common issues that we see as employment lawyers, and particularly in terms of claims, are issues of stress, depression and anxiety, which I know Heather's talked about already. And for employers, these can be issues that arise suddenly, so they just appear with, or there could be a long build up to them, and they can come and go, and that can be important when we're talking about disability discrimination, which we will come on to later. Also just wanted to flag to you, there's an ACAS guide which is entitled Coronavirus and Mental Health at Work, and that deals with issues surrounding return to work, and is a really good resource to look at and give some advice on how you might support employees. So again, just to emphasise that there is a duty on you to take reasonable care for the health and safety and well-being of your employees, but from a business perspective, it makes sense too, because a happy, healthy workforce tends to be more effective. So again, the message is to be proactive rather than reactive. And the things we should be doing are making ourselves aware of the impact of COVID-19, and Heather's very helpfully done that for us this morning, and particularly the impact on those with existing mental health issues, but also being aware, as Heather's pointed out, that those who've never suffered from mental health issues before may be affected by this situation, and we need to take care with those employees. I've mentioned disability discrimination, and it is possible that those with mental health conditions could be disabled for the purposes of the Equality Act 2010. And if that's the case, then there's an obligation on you as their employer to take reasonable steps to remove any disadvantage that they experience in the workplace as a result of their condition, so to make reasonable adjustments. There's another really helpful ACAS guide, and I've put that on the slide, which is supporting your staff's mental health, and that sets out the things that you might want to check and how you can identify well-being issues and steps you should take. And it can be as simple as just asking staff, how are you, and having that sort of conversation with them. As Heather said, managers need to be alert to the symptoms or the signs that an employee might be experiencing mental health issues. Now, Heather set those out much better than I would, but some of the things that you would like to look at are the employee appearing tired, anxious, increase in sickness absence levels, or changes in how they socialise, particularly when we go back to normal. That might be a flag that something's not quite right. But again, the advice really is, don't wait until something is classified as a disability to take action, and be proactive about this, and make sure that you're taking steps to address these issues. Sorry, I'm just having trouble changing my slide. Bear with me a second. Here we go. So, what do I mean by tackling mental health in the workplace proactively? What can employers do? Well, employers can, first of all, inform themselves, make sure that they understand the impact that mental health has on the workplace, and in this case, the impact of COVID-19. So it's by attending events such as this. Commit to creating a mental health strategy is a good idea. Educating the workforce is really, really important. So training your management on all of these things, or so that they are aware of what they should be looking out for. And that's management at all levels, because ultimately it's the line managers who are going to be the most effective at tackling this in a proactive way. Those people are going to be the ones that are going to see or notice changes that might flag that there's an issue. And in particular, how they respond can have a massive impact on the employee. So if the manager is unapproachable, the employee is concerned about raising these sorts of issues, then that could exacerbate the condition and the employee's mental health, and can mean that they continue to struggle on working when they're not really able to, or when adjustments need to be made. So engagement with managers and training of management, education of those are really important. Another thing you might want to think about is mental health first aiders. We have these in our firm. We've given training to staff at all levels in all departments across the firm. And these are people who are points of contact for someone to talk to about mental health issues, someone other than their line manager. So these are not managers as such, but again, it gives the staff another source to raise these issues, because we want staff to feel comfortable in raising these issues. This one can be a bit challenging, and that's that managers should lead by example. Sorry, that should be by example, not be example. By example. And what I mean by that is doing the right things in terms of our own mental health. So taking regular breaks from work, going out for walks at lunchtime, that sort of thing. And I say it's challenging because I find that challenging sometimes to do the right sorts of things. And but it is important for staff, because if you take your breaks, then the staff are going to feel more comfortable in taking the breaks. So it is important. And as I say, provide a safe place for staff to vocalise issues, because if we're aware of them and we can talk about them, then we're more likely to be able to address them in this proactive way that I'm recommending. So I'm going to hand you back over to Heather, who's going to talk about some key points to take away from all the things that we've been talking about. So Heather, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to just summarise basically everything that you've said, and like how important that is for our mental health. I think being aware, like you said, of the different ways that lockdown, the virus, can impact people's health is really important. And yeah, I think one of the things that you've mentioned there that I think is really important is like looking after yourself. As managers, like, you know, I know personally how difficult it can be, you know, listening to what like the difficulties are going on for people, you know, on a daily basis, and it's really exhausting. It can really take a lot out of you. So like you said, making sure that you're looking after yourselves, that you're encouraging people to keep in touch, whether it's like for work or outside of work, whether you're doing like pub quizzes online or online escape rooms, or just nice ways that people, especially those people who are living alone, can keep connected. And yeah, providing ongoing support, making sure people know what kind of EAP services are out there, if there are peer mentor buddy systems, whatever kind of support they can have. And that also shows people that you value their mental health. You know, if they do decide to disclose that, that's not going to be met with discrimination, that they're going to keep their job, and that they're going to be supported through whatever it is that they're going through. So that can be really important to help reduce any stigma. And I think something that we've kind of touched on is just being open and flexible with people who are returning to work. Show a willingness to make adjustments. You know, like Deborah said, some people who maybe had mental health or physical health problems and had adjustments for that before lockdown might have different needs now, or people that didn't have any needs before lockdown might have new needs or new adjustments that they might want to talk about now. And being as transparent and open about how you plan on looking after staff, I think will be really helpful. That can really build trust, especially about what physical things are going on to help protect staff's health from infection, but also just taking away some of that uncertainty about what they're facing when they come back. Yeah, and I think one thing that I think we've maybe not mentioned that comes from like a very psychologist place is just surveying staff mental health. So something that you might want to do before staff return to work is send out a survey or a well-being measure and just ask, how are people getting on? What support has been offered to them? Has it been helpful? What else do they think that you as an employer could do to support them coming back to work? So that's a good way just of sort of intervening as early as possible before things maybe get a little bit difficult. Oh, getting a bit croaky. Too much talk in the last few days. Excuse me. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to mention that, and also some of the support that First Psychology can offer to people all over Scotland. First Psychology has a First Psychology assistance programme. So through that we can offer webinars like this, resources on coping with lockdown. We've got a really useful toolkit that we've got available on our website that talks a lot about supporting staff returning to work. We offer therapy to individuals, couples, families. At the moment we're doing a lot of that online, but hopefully soon we will get to move back to face-to-face. And we can offer some consultancy or training on mental health, things like mental health first aid, and therapy and coaching, and things like that for organisations and employees and their families. So I don't know if Deborah's got some of the links to our website up there.
Oh, I don't. We can maybe send those out afterwards. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So you can honestly just go firstpsychology.co.uk, and if you want any information on like the lockdown and coping with the lockdown, that's under our news and events tab. But yeah, anything else you need, we can maybe send that out afterwards as well. But yeah, I think that's everything from me.
Good. I think we're going to go on to questions now. Sarah, are you going to jump in here?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I will share not email addresses, websites, etc. when I send out a wee short survey after this. Just to note as well, this session has obviously been recorded and it will be posted up on our YouTube channel. We've got a couple of different playlists there which bring together all the previous sessions that we've done through the kind of Take a Break series. We've had, well-being and resilience, we've had motivation, nutrition. There's a lot of some really kind of good advice there from other experts in the region. I know we've got Victoria on the call, who very kindly spoke at one of our sessions on wellbeing and resilience with her colleague Anne from Angus Council, which was a really good session as well. So there aren't actually many questions in the chat. I did, when you were speaking about how people had been keeping in touch with their colleagues, I just asked people to kind of feel free to share what they'd been doing. And it seems that quite a few are using either kind of Teams or Zoom or a mixture of both to keep in touch with people. Certainly ourselves in the chamber, and along with our DYW colleagues, we've held a couple of kind of Thursday night socials. Normally you would finish at 5 o'clock, you would go for a cheeky glass of wine. Obviously that can't happen at the moment, so we've kind of gotten everybody on a Zoom call, and we've had a quiz from Donna, we've done a scavenger hunt. It's impressive how competitive team members can be when even though it's just it's a bit of fun, but I wasn't competitive at all. So yeah, it's really kind of nice. I think actually this is almost bringing teams together more. We've had quite a few people on these calls saying that they are communicating better. There seems to be a better understanding of one another as well. Everybody's in the same boat, everybody's in the same position, and I guess it's kind of signposting people there to the help that actually is out there for people who may be struggling, or people that who may be struggling as well. So Heather, that's great. You've just popped in your website address there. I'll pick those up and I'll share those with people. We can share slide decks if that's okay with the two of you. What we've been trying to do is pinpoint people kind of to the YouTube, because a lot of the time these slides don't mean an awful lot without somebody kind of speaking at the back of it. So the YouTube channel is really the kind of place to go to kind of pick up the recording. and kind of see that through. If anybody does have anything they want to jump in with, even if it's you know, what you've been doing with your team. What is Victoria saying? Victoria, I hope you don't mind me picking on you. I know you've been on one of our calls before with some great advice. I don't know if you can unmute yourself and come in, Victoria.
Hi there.
Hi.
So yeah, Victoria and our colleague Anne were on a kind of wellbeing and resilience session with us. Both work at Angus Council, gave a really good insight into what Angus Council have been doing to support their colleagues. They've set up a wee hub that colleagues can access, you know, information on mental health, signposting their colleagues to different support services. But Victoria kind of spoke about her experience as an employee. I don't know if you've got anything else that you would want to add to it, Victoria. I mean, I know Angus Council have been quite involved in you know, keeping up to date with their colleagues. Has anything changed since the last time we spoke, or is there anything more that you've implemented that might help?
Well, certainly our HR department have been really helpful providing updates, and whenever colleagues are flagging up, you know, individual circumstances, they have been really responsive to updating our briefings and guidance, which is really good. One thing at the moment that is sort of a burning topic is the tax relief for working from home. So we're kind of in between on that one at the moment, because a lot of colleagues who are working part-time are asking how they can claim back on their tax through HMRC for this when they aren't reaching the tax threshold in the first place. So that's something that is an ongoing conversation at the moment. But yeah, I think it's really just carried on, a continuation of last time. I can't believe how quick the weeks have passed by, actually.
It does seem, it's scary. I mean, Alison said this morning, you know, 10 sessions that we've done on mental health, and I'm thinking, really, have we done 10? But actually, when you look back, it has been 10. I mean, when we started working from home a week and a half before lockdown commenced, and you know, we went home on the Tuesday, we didn't return to work, and on the Thursday we did our first webinar, and then from the next week it was just kind of hit the ground running. So yeah, it's been a long time, but certainly lots of topics that have been covered, home workout sessions, etc., which have been very, very good. So we've got Shona. So Shona's from Escalazing. They've been doing newsletters and updates. They're also looking into a pub quiz as a way to go. It's nice just to get that kind of social, you know, like you would do, you know, the end of the month on a Friday, or you know, a half day on a Thursday. You know, just kind of bringing some sort of normality back to the way things are. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and that's just coming up to kind of 1:30. So if nobody has anything else they would like to say, or jump in with. Nope, everybody's very quiet. Well, I would just like to thank both Deborah and Heather for that really, really informative session. Like I say, it'll be up on YouTube. Feel free to send it on to people, pointing people in that direction if you think it might help them. There is a playlist there where it collects all of them, so everything there from the past 10 weeks is easily accessible. So thank you to everybody for joining us on the session. All our webinars, as soon as they're ready, get listed up on the website, so anything else of interest to you, feel free to sign up. And everything's open to members and non-members as well, so if you know of any non-members who it may be of interest to, then just signpost them in our direction. But thanks again, ladies, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye now.